Millionaire rancher gave his worst land to his adopted son. 5 months later, he was shocked. Walter Thompson took a deep breath before gathering all his children in the mansion's main room, but he left Nathan waiting outside. His decision had been made weeks ago, ever since the lawyers pressed him about dividing the land. Finally, he opened the heavy wooden door and called the young man in. Nathan entered with his cap in hand, his red plaid shirt still stained with sweat from the morning's work. Walter coldly announced he would give him the worst piece of land on the property. "That plotway in the back, where there's nothing but rocks and dry brush," the rancher said, avoiding his adopted son's eyes. "That's what's left for you." Richard and Michael, his biological sons, chuckled quietly among themselves. The rocky, barren land hadn't produced anything in over 20 years. It was a cruel joke, and everyone knew it. Nathan swallowed the humiliation in silence. At 28, he'd spent half his life in that house, always treated like an outsider. He accepted the gift without question, just nodding his head. "Thank you, Mr. Walter," he murmured, putting the brown cap back on his head. That same night, when the house was quiet, Nathan walked to the land that was now his. The full moon lit up the scattered rocks, and the air carried the scent of dry earth. At the far end of the property, an abandoned barn stood like a ghostly shadow. Curiosity led him there. The door was stuck, but with a little force it creaked open. Inside, among cobwebs and rusted tools, he found a dusty wooden box. His hands trembled as he lifted the lid. Yellowed, time-worn documents revealed something astonishing. That land had once been the most productive in the region. Old maps showed springs and planting areas that no longer existed. A handwritten note in the margin spoke of a family conflict that had destroyed everything. Nathan spent the night reading every paper, trying to understand what had happened decades ago. By sunrise, his resolve was stronger than ever. He would work that land until it flourished again. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. The young man began working alone under the scorching Kansas sun. He woke before 5 in the morning and didn't stop until the stars appeared. His once soft hands soon became covered in calluses and bled by day's end. Margaret Thompson, Walter's wife, watched from the bedroom window. Her chest tightened, seeing her stepson labor so hard on land that seemed cursed. She'd never defended Nathan against her husband's humiliations, and it weighed on her conscience. "Why don't you just quit?" Richard asked one hot afternoon, finding Nathan hauling rocks. "That land will never be good for anything." "Maybe," Nathan replied, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. "But it's mine now, and I'll do what I want with it." Michael laughed mockingly. "You should have taken the money Dad offered. At least you could have bought real land somewhere else." Nathan didn't answer. He knew his brothers wanted to see him fail. It had always been that way, ever since he arrived at the ranch at 14, after his temporary foster parents could no longer care for him. Weeks passed, and the work never stopped. Nathan carried melon-sized rocks one by one, piling them along the edges of the land. The sun scorched his back, and thirst was constant, but he persisted. It was during one of these afternoons that Old Bill, the neighbor from the next property, showed up. The man in his mid-60s watched the work for a while before approaching. "Son, do you know what you're doing there?" asked the old man, taking off his hat to fan himself. "Trying to clear this land, Old Bill," replied Nathan, stopping to talk. The neighbor looked around, recognizing something Nathan hadn't yet noticed. "My father used to tell me stories about this place. It once had the best crop in the whole region. Purple cabbage, you know, a special variety that only grew in this soil." Nathan felt his heart race. The documents he'd found in the barn mentioned cabbages, but he'd thought it was a coincidence. What happened? Why did it stop producing? Old Bill sighed, gazing at the horizon. "A family feud. The original owner, a man named Joseph Thompson, was your adoptive father's father. When Joseph passed, Walter and his brother fought over the inheritance. Rather than back down, Walter destroyed everything. He blocked the springs, salted the land, tore out the plants. He'd rather see it all turn to stone than share it with his brother." The revelation hit Nathan like a punch to the gut. Walter had given him this exact land because he knew its history. It was a double revenge, humiliating his adopted son and burying the past that shamed him. "The springs are still down there," Old Bill continued. "You just have to know where to dig." That night, Nathan barely slept. For the first time since arriving at the ranch, he felt there was a greater purpose to his life. It wasn't just about proving his worth, it was about restoring something destroyed by pride and greed. The next day, following Old Bill's directions, he started digging in specific spots where the ground looked different. At first, he found only more rocks and dry soil, but on the third day, he heard a sound that made him stop: running water. He dug deeper, and suddenly, a gush of crystal-clear water sprang from the earth. The spring was there, exactly where the neighbor had said it would be. Nathan knelt in the wet dirt, tears of relief streaming down his dirty face. But the discovery didn't end there. Beside the spring, buried among ancient roots, he found a metal box. Inside were yellowed photographs of a young woman with a sweet smile holding a baby in her arms. On the back of one, delicate handwriting read, "Nathan and Mama, 1995. The world seemed to stop. He immediately recognized his own face in the woman's features. His birth mother, whom he thought he'd never know, was there, smiling at him across time. Other photos showed the same woman working the land, with purple cabbages in the background. One pictured her beside an older man Nathan recognized as his grandfather, Joseph Thompson. The last photo in the sequence was devastating. The woman, pregnant and tearful, packing her bags. Nathan understood his mother had worked this land before he was born, that she knew the secrets of this soil, and that for some reason she'd been forced to leave. Margaret Thompson appeared on the property that afternoon, carrying a bottle of cold water and some cheese rolls. It was the first time she'd approached him to help. "You found the water," she said, looking at the spring that now formed a small stream. "I found a lot of things," Nathan replied, tucking the photos into his shirt pocket. "I know I was never a good mother to you," Margaret sighed. "I was afraid of Walter, afraid to cross him. But you deserve the truth." Nathan watched her intently. Finally, someone was willing to talk. "Your mother's name was Lucy. She worked here for almost 2 years before you were born. She was the smartest woman I ever knew when it came to farming, had a special way with plants. What happened to her?" Margaret Thompson hesitated, looking around as if afraid of being overheard. "Walter was younger back then. He wasn't married to me yet. He and Lucy got involved, but when she got pregnant, he refused to take responsibility. Said she was lying, that the child could be anyone's." Anger rose in Nathan's chest, but he controlled himself to hear the rest. Lucy left pregnant and hurt. Walter regretted it later, but his pride wouldn't let him go after her. Years later, when he found out she had passed and that you were in the orphanage, he decided to adopt you. He thought he could fix his mistake that way, but he never told me who I was. He's ashamed of the past, ashamed of how he treated your mother, and the more you grew up looking like her, the harder it was for him to look you in the eye. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, Nathan threw himself into his work with even more intensity. Now it wasn't just about proving his worth, but honoring his mother's memory. He channeled water from the spring to irrigate different sections of the land and began preparing the soil using the techniques he'd learned from the old documents. Margaret returned in the following days, always bringing food and water. Little by little, she started helping, bringing seeds she'd saved and better tools from the main barn. "Your mother planted purple cabbage this time of year," she said one afternoon, handing him special seeds she'd gotten from acquaintances. She said this land had something magical for these plants. Nathan planted the seeds carefully, watering each row with water from the rediscovered spring. Meanwhile, Richard and Michael spread rumors in town that he was wasting the family's time and resources. The adopted kid's playing rancher. Michael laughed at the town bar. Soon he'll be asking Dad for a loan when he sees it's going nowhere. Walter, pressured by comments from other ranchers in the area, grew angry. One Thursday night, he showed up on the land where Nathan was working by lamplight. How much longer are you going to play around with this land? He asked sharply. As long as it takes, Nathan replied without stopping his watering of the sprouts. You have 3 months. If this land isn't producing something worthwhile by then, I'll take it from you and give it to someone who knows how to work it properly. The threat didn't shake Nathan. If anything, it only strengthened his resolve. He knew the plants needed time, and 3 months would be tight, but not impossible. The first purple cabbage sprouts appeared in 2 weeks, growing at a speed that surprised even Nathan. The land, fed by the pure spring water and enriched by decades of natural decay, showed signs of its former fertility. It was during this time that he began receiving mysterious visits. An elegant woman with graying hair and fine clothes would occasionally appear on the road bordering the land. She watched his work from afar, always with a thoughtful expression. The first time, Nathan waved politely. The woman waved back, but didn't approach. On her second visit, she stayed longer, observing the rows of cabbages starting to form small purple heads. "Good morning," Nathan said one hot morning, walking toward the fence. "Are you lost?" "No, dear," she replied in a soft, cultured voice. "Just admiring your work. It's been a long time since I've seen purple cabbages grow on this land." Something in her voice struck a familiar chord in Nathan's heart. There was a resemblance to the woman in the photographs he carried in his pocket. "Did you know this property before?" "I knew her," she said, her eyes welling up. "My sister worked here. She was the best farmer these parts have ever seen." Nathan's heart raced. Could this woman be his aunt? "What was your sister's name?" "Lucy," she replied, then looked him straight in the eyes. "Lucy Reynolds. And you, boy, have her eyes." Nathan felt his legs go weak. He pulled one of the photos from his pocket and showed it to the woman. She brought her hand to her chest, clearly moved. "Hey, you're Nathan," she said, more as a statement than a question. "My nephew." "You're my aunt?" "I'm Hope Reynolds." She extended her hand over the fence. "Your mother's older sister. I've been looking for you for years." The conversation that followed changed everything Nathan thought he knew about his past. Hope explained that Lucy had left the ranch pregnant and heartbroken, but had stayed in touch with the family. She knew who the child's father was, but Walter had denied everything. "Your mother loved you more than anything in this world," Hope said, wiping tears from her eyes. "She made me promise that one day I'd find you and tell you the truth about who you are." "Why did it take so long?" "Walter changed your name when he adopted you. You were registered as Nathan Reynolds, but you became Nathan Thompson. It took me years to find out where you were." Hope revealed she had watched Nathan grow up from afar, always waiting for the right moment to reveal herself. When she learned he had received that specific piece of land, she knew it was a sign. "Your mother left something for you," she said, handing him a sealed envelope. "It was meant for you when you turned 30, but I think it's time now." Inside the envelope was a heartfelt letter from Lucy to the son she barely knew. She wrote about the special farming techniques she had learned from her own father, the secrets of that land, and the love she had for him, even though she had to leave. But what struck Nathan most was the final revelation. Lucy had left him a substantial inheritance in his name, locked away until he turned 30 or proved he could manage productive land. "The worthless land Walter gave you," Hope explained, "was actually a test your mother foresaw. She knew one day you'd return to this soil." The purple cabbages had grown extraordinarily, forming perfect heads with a uniquely rich hue. News spread quickly through the region, drawing curious onlookers and potential buyers. A renowned chef from Kansas City, who had heard about the exceptional quality of the vegetables, showed up at the ranch one Tuesday morning. He offered an exclusive contract to supply his 3 restaurants with the special cabbages. "I've never seen cabbages with this color and flavor," the chef said, examining one of the heads. "It's exactly what I need for my specialty dishes." The proposed contract would pay 3 times the normal market price. Suddenly, the useless land had become a gold mine. Richard and Michael were furious when they heard about their adopted brother's success. They demanded a meeting with their father to discuss the situation. "This isn't fair," Richard complained. "We've worked our whole lives on this ranch, and the adopted one shows up and gets rich off one crop." "He got lucky," Michael said. Anyone could have planted cabbages on that land. Walter was torn. On one hand, he felt proud of Nathan's success. On the other, he saw his biological sons questioning his decisions. "You had chances to work much better land," the rancher reminded them. "If you didn't take advantage, that's not my fault." "But now we want our share of the profits," Richard insisted. "We're family, we have a right." The pressure from his biological sons grew when they discovered the true value of the restaurant contract. They started spreading rumors that Nathan had used family resources to get special seeds and equipment. "That's a lie," Nathan defended himself in a tense conversation on the main house's porch. "Everything I used, I got through my own effort." "And the money to buy the seeds?" Michael provoked. "Aunt Hope helped me with some things," Nathan admitted. Walter, who didn't know about Hope's existence, grew intrigued. "What aunt is this?" Nathan took a deep breath. It was time to lay all the cards on the table. "Hope Reynolds, sister of my birth mother." Walter's face instantly paled. The name Lucy Reynolds hit him like a ghost from the past he'd tried to bury for decades. "Lucy," he murmured, barely audible. "That's right," Nathan said, pulling the photographs from his pocket. "My mother, the woman you denied knowing when she told you she was pregnant." Richard and Michael looked confused between their father and their adoptive brother. For the first time, they began to realize there was much more to Nathan's adoption. Walter took one of the photographs with trembling hands. It showed Lucy, pregnant, smiling timidly at the camera, her belly already quite visible. "Where did you get this?" "She left it buried near the spring, along with a letter explaining who I am and why she had to leave." The revelation brought a heavy silence to the porch. Margaret, who had been listening from the kitchen window, decided to join the conversation. "He deserves to know the whole truth, Walter," she said, surprising everyone with her firmness. "And you deserve to stop carrying this guilt." Walter looked at his wife, then at Nathan, and finally at his birth sons, who were waiting for an explanation. "Lucy was," he began, his voice choked. "She was the most special woman I ever knew, smart, caring, hard-working, and I was a coward." Richard and Michael listened in silence as their father recounted his relationship with Lucy, the denied pregnancy, and the regret he'd carried for 3 decades. "When I found out that you no longer had parents," Walter continued, looking at Nathan, "I decided to adopt you. I thought that way I could make up for what I did. But with each passing day, you looked more like her, and I couldn't look at you without remembering my cowardice." "That's why you treated me differently from the others," Nathan concluded. "That's why I gave you that land," Walter admitted. "I knew she had worked there. I knew the secrets she knew about that soil. Part of me wanted you to fail, to prove she wasn't so special after all. But another part hoped you'd make the land productive again." The confession reopened old wounds, but also created an opportunity for healing. Nathan felt anger, relief, sadness, and understanding all at once. "I forgave you a long time ago," he finally said, "but I needed to know the truth." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Hope appeared at the ranch a few days later, carrying documents that would change everything again. The inheritance Lucy had left for Nathan was far greater than he'd imagined. "Your mother was a forward-thinking woman," Hope explained in the main house's living room with the whole family present. "She knew one day you'd return to this land, and she prepared for it." The documents showed that Lucy had invested her savings in agricultural company stocks over the years. The accumulated value, with interest and adjustments, amounted to nearly $500,000. "But there's a condition," Hope continued. "The money can only be released if you prove you can manage the land productively and sustainably." Nathan looked at the contract with the restaurants, at the photos of the flourishing plantation, at the faces of his adoptive family. "I think I've already tasted this," he said with a smile. Richard and Michael were visibly uncomfortable with the inheritance revelation. The envy they'd always felt for their adopted brother now mixed with the realization that they'd completely underestimated the situation. "So you're rich now," muttered Richard. "No," Nathan replied. "We're family. At least, that's how I want it to be." Nathan's generosity surprised everyone. Instead of keeping the inheritance for himself, he proposed creating an agricultural cooperative to help small local ranchers restore degraded land. "I've learned this land has secrets," he explained. "Techniques my mother mastered that can be applied elsewhere. We can teach more people how to make their land productive again." The idea excited Margaret Thompson, who offered to help with the administrative side. Walter, still processing all the revelations, stayed quiet for a long time. "What about you two?" Nathan asked his brothers. "Do you want to be part of this?" Richard and Michael exchanged glances. The offer was too generous to refuse, but it meant working alongside someone they'd always looked down on. "What kind of work?" Michael asked cautiously. "The same as I did," Nathan answered without hesitation. "Starting from scratch, removing rocks, preparing the soil, planting with your own hands. No privileges." The condition made the brothers hesitate. They'd always seen manual labor as beneath them, delegating hard tasks to employees. "We'll think about it," Richard said, unconvinced. Nathan didn't push. He knew changing their mindset would take time, if it happened at all. The purple cabbage plantation became a regional attraction. Journalists arrived to document the story of the land that had come back to life. The coverage highlighted not just the agricultural success, but the human story behind the transformation. During an interview, Walter finally found the courage to speak publicly about his past. "I made serious mistakes when I was young," he said, tears in his eyes. "I hurt someone special and tried to hide it for decades. Nathan gave me a second chance I didn't deserve." The public confession moved many in the area. Older ranchers remembered Lucy and her reputation as an exceptional farmer. The story grew even bigger when a TV network decided to make a documentary about restoring degraded land. Richard and Michael watched the coverage in silence. Seeing their adopted brother praised nationally stirred their pride. More than that, they began to realize they'd wasted opportunities out of pure prejudice. "Maybe we should have given him a chance sooner," Michael remarked in a private conversation with his brother. "Too late for that now," Richard replied bitterly. "It's not too late if he's still willing to teach us," Michael mused. The brothers' conversation continued over several days. Slowly, they began to see they'd been raised with privileges that made them complacent. Nathan, on the other hand, had fought for everything since childhood, developing a strength of character they lacked. Margaret, watching the family's transformation, decided to take a more active role. She approached Nathan one hot afternoon as he watered the plants. "Can I talk to you?" "Of course, Mrs. Margaret." "I never apologized for how I treated you all these years. I was as cowardly as Walter. I was afraid to stand up, to defend you when you needed it." Nathan stopped watering and looked at his stepmother carefully. "You were always kind to me, Mrs. Margaret. It could have been worse." "No, Nathan. Being neutral when someone needs support is almost as bad as being cruel. You deserve to have someone by your side, and I failed you." The frank conversation brought Nathan and Margaret Thompson even closer. She began working actively in the cooperative, using her administrative experience to handle the bureaucratic aspects. Hope Reynolds also moved closer to the ranch, buying a small house in the neighboring town. She wanted to make up for lost years by getting to know her nephew. Her stories about Lucy helped Nathan build a more complete picture of his mother. "She was as stubborn as you," Hope laughed. "Once she got an idea in her head, nothing in the world could make her give up." "Would she be proud of what I've accomplished?" "She'd be moved," Hope replied without hesitation, "but not surprised. She always knew you'd be special." The cooperative began taking shape as other small producers in the area showed interest in the proposal. Nathan and Margaret organized meetings to explain soil recovery techniques and sustainable farming methods. The first pilot project would be on Old Bill's neighboring property, who had offered a degraded plot for testing. Nathan taught the techniques for locating springs and preparing the soil, skills he'd worked so hard to learn. "It's like reviving the land," he explained to a group of interested farmers. "It's still there, it just needs to be awakened the right way." Richard showed up at one of these meetings, surprising everyone. He stayed at the back of the room, silently listening to the technical explanations. At the end, he approached Nathan. "Can I join the pilot project?" Of course, Nathan replied, showing no surprise. But you know the conditions. I do. Manual labor from the start. No privileges. Why the change of heart? Richard hesitated before answering. Because I realized I never really learned how to work. Everything always came easy to me. I want to know what it's like to earn something with my own hands. The pilot project on Old Bill's land became a learning lab. Richard worked side by side with Nathan, discovering muscles he didn't know he had and developing calluses on his hands for the first time in his life. It's harder than I imagined, Richard admitted during a lunch break. And more rewarding too, Nathan replied, handing his brother a water bottle. Michael took longer to join the group, but eventually appeared when he saw the first results of the pilot project. Old Bill's land began showing signs of life after just 6 weeks of work. How did you manage this so quickly? Michael asked, impressed by the sprouts starting to emerge. Patience and technique, Nathan answered, and a lot of sweat. The brothers' transformation didn't go unnoticed by Walter Thompson. The rancher watched from a distance, seeing his 3 sons working together for the first time. The guilt he'd carried for decades began giving way to something he hadn't felt in years: hope. One Friday evening, he approached Nathan, who was working alone under the starlight. Can I help? Nathan looked at his adoptive father, seeing a man aged by the weight of his own mistakes. You always can, Walter. Working side by side broke the last barrier between them. Walter shared more details about Lucy, her dreams for the land, the regret that had eaten at him for years. She wanted to start a sustainable farming school, he revealed, said the old techniques were being lost and someone needed to preserve them. That's exactly what we're doing with the cooperative, Nathan observed. She'd be so proud, Walter said, his voice thick with emotion. The cooperative grew quickly, attracting attention from universities and government agencies interested in environmental restoration techniques. Nathan was invited to give lectures and workshops, always bringing Richard and Michael along as assistants. I never imagined I'd be teaching sustainable farming, Richard laughed during a talk in Kansas City. Life's full of surprises, Nathan replied. The cooperative's growing reputation brought business opportunities. Major supermarket chains became interested in the organic products being grown on the reclaimed land. But Nathan insisted on upholding the cooperative's principles. Profits were divided equally among all participants, and part of the income was reinvested in new reclamation projects. We're not here to get rich, he explained at a cooperative meeting. We're here to prove it's possible to work the land sustainably and fairly. The cooperative's success caught the attention of a multinational company interested in buying the operation. The offer was tempting, several $1 million in exchange for the technology and land rights. That's enough money to make the whole family rich, Michael remarked, clearly tempted by the proposal. And to destroy everything we've built, Nathan countered. These companies would industrialize the process and strip away the human aspect of the work. The decision over the offer sparked the first serious conflict within the cooperative. Some members saw a chance to get rich quickly, while others preferred to maintain their independence. Walter, who had become one of the cooperative's strongest advocates, made a surprising decision. At a special meeting, he announced he would donate his entire ranch to the cooperative. This land belongs to those who know how to care for it, he said. And Nathan has proven he knows better than anyone. The donation settled the multinational's offer. With the entire ranch now part of the cooperative, selling isolated portions of the project was no longer possible. Now we're all owners and workers at the same time, Nathan explained. No one gets rich, but no one goes without. The deed transfer ceremony was emotional. Walter handed the documents to Nathan with tears in his eyes. Your grandfather Joseph would be proud, he said, and so would your mother. They are proud, Nathan replied, touching his pocket where he always carried Lucy's photograph. The cooperative story gained national attention when an agribusiness magazine published a cover feature on the project. The headline read, "The Land That Rose Again: How One Young Man Turned the Worst Soil into a Model of Sustainability." The photos showed the area's complete transformation, from rocky, barren ground to lush fields of purple cabbage and other crops. But the most striking image was of the family working together. I never thought I'd see my children working side by side, Margaret said proudly. Neither did I, Walter admitted. Nathan managed to do what I never could: unite this family. The cooperative became a model studied in agricultural universities. Students from across the country came to intern and learn the soil reclamation techniques developed there. Nathan, who had never dreamed of being a teacher, discovered a joy in sharing knowledge. His hands-on field lessons were always in demand, and he made sure to explain the story behind each technique. "Everything we know comes from the wisdom of humble folks who worked this land before us," he'd say. "Our job is to preserve that knowledge and pass it on." Richard and Michael became coordinators for different areas of the cooperative. Richard handled soil preparation and irrigation, while Michael specialized in planting and cultivation techniques. "Who'd have thought I'd become an expert in purple cabbage?" Michael chuckled during a family conversation. "Life teaches us what we need to learn," Nathan replied philosophically. Hope became the official chronicler of the cooperative, documenting the techniques and stories of the people involved. Her project was to create a book about sustainable family farming based on the cooperative's experience. "Your mother always wanted to write about the techniques she knew," she told Nathan. "Now I can do it for her." When the book was finished, it was dedicated to the memory of Lucy Reynolds and to future generations of farmers. Nathan wrote the foreword, speaking about the importance of valuing traditional knowledge. The cooperative expanded its activities to include a research center and a technical school for sustainable agriculture. Young people from poor rural families could study there for free, learning both theory and practice. "It's your mother's dream coming true," Hope said to Nathan on the day of the school's inauguration. "It's the beginning of something bigger," he replied, watching the first students arrive for class. Walter, now over 70, found a new purpose in life at the school. He became a volunteer teacher of agricultural history, telling the young students about the changes he had witnessed over his lifetime. "When I was young, I thought progress meant big machines and chemicals," he explained in his lessons. "I learned that real progress is working with nature, not against it." Margaret Thompson coordinated the cooperative's social assistance program, which provided baskets of organic food to needy families in the region. It was their way of giving back to the community that had supported the project. The cooperative received several awards for sustainability and social innovation. Nathan was invited to speak at international conferences on sustainable farming, always accompanied by his brothers and Walter. "5 years ago, I was just a young man with bad land," he said during a talk in Chicago. "Today, we're a united family working for a better future." The audience was moved when he shared the full story, from the initial humiliation to the transformation of the family and the land. Many people approached him afterward to ask how they could replicate the experience in their own regions. "The secret isn't in the technique," Nathan always explained. "It's in the willingness to work hard and the courage to forgive and start over." The story caught the attention of a television producer interested in turning it into a documentary. Nathan hesitated at first, but eventually agreed when he realized it could inspire others. "If our story can help a family reconcile or a farmer not give up on their land, it's worth it," he said. The filming lasted 6 months, following a full planting and harvest cycle. The documentary showed not just the technical aspects of land recovery, but above all, the personal transformation of everyone involved. When the documentary aired, it sparked widespread interest in sustainable farming and family reconciliation. The cooperative received hundreds of visitors eager to see the project firsthand. "I never imagined our ordinary story would touch so many people," Richard remarked, still surprised by the response. "It's because everyone has their own bad land to recover," Nathan replied, "whether it's real or metaphorical." The phrase became the cooperative's unofficial slogan. Everyone has their own bad land to recover. It was a poetic way of saying that everyone has problems and relationships that need work. On the cooperative's 5th anniversary, the celebration brought together over 1,000 people. Local officials, researchers, farmers, and residents celebrated the achievements. The land once considered the worst on the ranch now housed the cooperative's headquarters and demonstration fields, welcoming visitors from across the country. Explanatory signs told the story of the transformation and taught the techniques used. During the celebration, Walter stepped onto the makeshift stage to give a speech. His words moved everyone. 5 years ago, I was a man bitter about the past, unable to truly love my adopted son. Today, I'm a man grateful for a second chance to be a father. Nathan taught me it's never too late to change. Nathan stepped onto the stage and embraced his adoptive father, publicly sealing the reconciliation that had transformed not only their lives but the entire community around them. "My mother always said this land was special," Nathan told the crowd. "Now I know she was right. But the real magic isn't in the soil. It's in the ability we all have to plant hope where there was once only despair." The celebration continued into the night with music and dancing typical of the region. Whole families joined in, including many who had benefited from the cooperative's programs. It was living proof that a project born in humiliation had become a source of joy and prosperity for hundreds of people. Hope, watching the celebration, held a framed photo of Lucy. Tears of happiness streamed down her face as she imagined how her sister would feel, seeing her son fulfilled and surrounded by love. "She's here with us," she murmured, gently touching the frame. Nathan walked over to his aunt and followed her gaze to the photograph. "She always has been," he agreed. "In every seed planted, in every person helped, in every second chance we've given each other." The story of the cooperative would continue to grow and inspire others, but that night marked the moment everyone fully understood the miracle that had happened. A family torn apart by pride and prejudice had come together through honest work and sincere forgiveness. The barren land had become far more than a thriving crop. It had become a symbol that it's always possible to start over, always possible to forgive, and always possible to turn adversity into blessing. And amid the fields of purple cabbage swaying gently in the night breeze, the story of Lucy, Nathan, Walter, and the whole family would continue to inspire future generations of ranchers and dreamers. The end. So, dear listeners, what did you think of this touching story? Tell us in the comments which part moved your heart the most, and if you've ever experienced a similar story of family overcoming hardship. Leave a like if the story was worth it. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other incredible stories like this one. Thank you so much for joining us.